Thank the Chairman, and I'd ask unanimous consent to have my full 5 minutes restored. I mean, it's been interesting listening to the accounts here of 118 visits to the White House by Mr. Shulman. No talk about this specific issue. No talk about related issues during those 118 visits. 132 letters coming from members of Congress, 42 articles in newspapers, and frankly, we just had the opportunity now of having the press really get engaged with it, but 42 over that course of time. I also look at a train of events. September 2010, Senate Finance Committee Chairman Baucus wrote a letter to the IRS asking the IRS to survey tax-exempt organizations to ensure that political campaign activity is not the organization's primary activity. October 2010, Senator Durbin wrote to the IRS to review the purposes and activities of several tax-exempt organizations. February 2012, Senators Bennett, Franken, Merkley, Schumer, Shaheen, Udall, and Whitehouse wrote to the IRS about the issue. 32 Democrats in March of 2012, House Democrats wrote to the IRS and the White House to ask that political activity of tax-exempt organizations be investigated. July and August of 2012, Senator Levin sent letters to the IRS and said that the IRS appears to be passively standing by while organizations clearly ignore the tax code with no apparent consequences. Now, this to me seems like a significant amount of requests for information and concerns that private citizens, organizations seeking tax-exempt status who happen to be of the conservative side would be checked on and questioned. Now, I find it difficult, Mr. Woolen, to understand how that didn't come across your train of reference and responsibility earlier on. Did you ever discuss congressional interest in the way the IRS was handling political nonprofits with the President?
I did not, Congressman, never.
Did you ever discuss it with anyone at the White House or any agency outside the IRS?
I did not, Congressman.
Why didn't you discuss this when you knew it was of such interest to Congress and you knew Congress was apparently not satisfied with whatever actions the agency had taken thus far on either side of the issue?
Frankly, Congressman, the correspondence to which you referred did not come to me. I think it was in general, as you suggested, addressed to the IRS, and I frankly was unaware of this, of the concern until—
But Treasury has intense responsibility and ought to have intense scrutiny over the IRS, correct?
Well, Congressman, I think it's important for me to reiterate that with respect to the details of tax administration and tax enforcement, it's been the longstanding practice of Treasury Departments spanning administrations of Republican and Democratic presidents not to get involved in those details, specifically because we don't want to have political influence over those kinds of detailed activities with respect to tax administration. I think this is a hearing and a subject matter that makes clear why that's not a good idea.
Not a good idea. Mr. Shulman, when did you learn about the second BOLO again and the failure of employees to follow explicit directions from their superiors?
About the fact that there was a BOLO and then a second BOLO and that employees hadn't followed directions?
Yes.
That I didn't learn about until this last week when the report came out.
Wow. Were you involved in any discussions about disciplining people who were being insubordinate in the Cincinnati office?
Not that I remember.
In Politico today, I see this headline here: heads won't roll at the IRS. Heads won't roll at the IRS. Labor rules give workers protection. The amount of ineptitude, and it's assuming that a Fifth Amendment was requested by Ms. Lerner, who is not here, we have to assume that there's some concern about criminality as well. What does it take for someone to get disciplined at the IRS?
There's, at the IRS, there's, procedures that people follow. Workers have.
And people don't follow, I would guess.
And there's a union, so it depends if it's somebody in the union or not. the best of my knowledge, it's the kinds of procedures you would think about in any organization.
Well, specifically,
which is to
while you were
give
Commissioner,
people warnings, go over it.
I only have 4 seconds. While you were Commissioner, for what reasons did you discipline some individuals at the IRS while you were Commissioner?
Inappropriate conduct, not doing their job, those kinds of things.
Wow. And we missed all of this. I yield back.